is on the topic of the end of campaign thinking and what replaces the big idea. Please join me in welcoming our panelists to the stage. We have with us on the panel Mr. Nikhil Sharma, Chief Marketing Officer, JBCN Education. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome our panelists. Joining us on the panel is Mr. Naarayan TV, Chief Marketing Officer, Akasa Air. Let that applause keep going, ladies and gentlemen. We've just had lunch. Joining us on the panel, we also have Mr. Sonal Dabral, Film Director and Creative Consultant and founder, Tribha. And may I request everyone to sit according to the lineup on screen. I'd request gentlemen to sit according to the lineup as per your photographs and names on screen. Thank you. Joining us on the panel, we have Ms. Harmeet Singh, Chief Brand Officer, The Body Shop Asia South. Put your hands together, everybody. Take those two hands, put them together. We also have on the panel Mr. Jiten, Mahendra, Chief Marketing Officer, Shoppers Stop. A very warm welcome to you as well. Joining them on the panel, we have Ms. Gargi Bhatt, Head Brand and Customer Engagement at IndiaFirst Life. A very warm welcome to you. On the panel, we are also joined by Mr. Divyanshu Yadav, Head of Branding, JKMAXX Paints. Ladies and gentlemen, come on. And moderating this session is Ms. Moneka Khurana, Country Head and Board Member, MMA, Marketing Plus Media Alliance, India. All right, I think we did not a great job at the clapping, so let's do a collective applause for our panelists and our moderator. A very warm welcome to you all. And Monica, I leave the stage over to you. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. I have a big responsibility, but I have a lovely panel and I'm very excited to do this. So to begin with, I do want to say a big thank you to Satyajit and to Srikant for having me here and for trusting me with such a valuable conversation. I promise to make it down for the audience as well. And of course, I've met all my panelists who are now more like friends, and I think this is really a lovely chat, except for the fact that you don't have drinks with us. That said, I'm going to start this with a little humor, We are being told to talk about the end of campaign thinking and what replaces the big idea. You know what it makes me feel? First of all, I must say it's a great topic. It's very provocative. It forces thinking, and we need to do complete justice. But when I read it again and again, it feels like I could replace it by saying, is it the end of marriages and what's replacing it open relationships? Is it? I don't think so. It's like saying, have you stopped wearing saris, Gargi? No? Will we ever stop wearing them? I knew we established something there. So that's it. Now let's get to the content of it. Okay? So I think as a group, we come with diverse experience, diverse industries, and in the middle of this entire group, we have creative expertise, like, where every time I look at him, I feel like in the fangirl moment, and I can't resist saying that. But that said, since we have a very interesting mix of people out here, I want to be able to establish with you guys your views on what do you think. Is it really the end of campaign thinking? Do you really think it's replacing the big idea out here? Let's go with you, Jiten. Let's start.
I think it's a pretty interesting question. So, to answer, I think that the campaign is not required. But what we are talking about is there's nothing like a campaign. We need multiple rounds of conversation to reach out to the customer, and it has to be across all the touch points. So campaigns are required. They are the heart of. So creativity is a multiplier for the business. It's not like a hindrance to the business, but it has to be more leveraged across. That's what I would say.
Okay. Sonal?
First of all, I just want to release the pressure that you put me in. In my book, everybody is creative. So I'm not the only creative. Okay, so I completely agree with him, which is that whether you call it campaign or whether you call it big idea or whether you call it that one line or thought that becomes the anchor. And that thought or that big idea, which we traditionally call it big idea, has to be anchored in some kind of a consumer insight, consumer behavior, so that it sticks.
Sure.
Now, the difference that has happened now, big idea in my books will never die. It's just that now it morphs itself into, or should itself into various different kinds of executions.
Right.
So that core has to be there for anything to be successful, for you to connect to the consumer's heart.
Okay.
Because if you tell yourself that big idea is there, now I'll create multiple different executions. That means they'll all be schizophrenic, they'll be, you know, talking different things. So you need a core idea that based on sharp consumer insight and that connects to the heart besides the mind also.
Gargi, what's your take? Given that you are in a space which is, you know, like very high on trust and yet very difficult to resonate emotionally. So life insurance is a very tricky phase. The awareness about life insurance is 100%. Yeah. Okay. But nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, oh, today I want to buy life insurance. That's the thing. And it is one of the least frequently purchased categories, right? And also very high on involvement. So in these scenarios, there is not so. In fact, we are one of the few industries for whom the big campaigns matter the most because they are the ones who lend the most credibility and also the most amount of trust. Uh, the big campaigns, the big ideas, and the core, which touches your heart, is what is going to make the consumer consider me. Okay, the smaller, the what the world calls performance or the full funnel performance campaigns are the ones which are going to make him buy at that time. Sure. So that's how I look at it. It has to be driven by consumer insight. It has to be something which will build how are you different? Because life insurance is a commoditized industry, right? One life insurance policy is very similar to another life insurance policy in certain ways. So for me, emotional core and emotional attachment or mind space of the customer matters. And that is only done through great ideas, great storytelling, and bigger campaigns. Got it. Interesting. I'm going to have a follow up question, which is going to be slightly more like, challenging, but I know you guys will get through. So, what's your take on it? Tell me. I'm, I'm talking to you. Yeah.
See, actually, I come from the base strategy, and
Yeah.
the it's not the end of the campaign thinking. Actually, it's more about we are running out of patience. We are
Okay.
chasing next best trend. We're not, being really consistent quarter on quarter when it comes to that same core ideas, Sonal was talking about. And we're just simply chasing the next best thing. So, the idea is big campaigns, the season campaigns, even in my category, is extremely important because that lends the trust when the consumer is looking for it. And at the same time, we also read what we are doing in those non cycles is also really important.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Narayan, what's your take? I mean, I know you spoke a lot about how this is way beyond just telling great stories for you.
So the way I see it is, it's the most cliche thing that I can say. I agree with each one of the opinions. Having said that, I think the big idea will exist, but it will have to be executed as smaller parts. So where the big idea will cease to exist is if you treat it as a campaign burst.
Okay.
You just typically from a media planning lens, people will say we have a 45-day campaign, we'll have a GRP of so much. That is not something that I'm a fan of because that is just an introductory phase of things. But the way people consume today is, I was just reading the other day that on an average, a human being is exposed to about 10,000 messages a day. 10,000 different brands talking to you. How are you going to register anything? And each one comes out with the belief that we've got a big idea that we are going to you with. So I think it's going to be more of frequency and it's a question of trust. And trust is not going to be built overnight.
Yeah.
It has to be done in parts consistently over a period of time. So that's my
Interesting. Harmeet, what's your take?
So I don't have much to say because everybody has said, and I will of course echo what you have said, all of you, that the big idea and the body shop as well. For us, doing some big campaigns or big messaging it's always, I would say, critical because that would actually reflect the brand messaging and the brand personality, what we want, where we are coming from. But I understand that this, so we cannot only sustain on only the big idea. That is, just to say that to have one big idea and we are good to go. These days, how dynamic the consumers are, what they want to see. With the big idea, which I'll talk a little later about the big campaigns, what we are doing, we also prefer to execute smaller and more resonating activations, whether they're offline or online on digital, so that this helps the consumer to understand and to resonate and to understand what the brand is actually getting across to them. So for us, offline activations, they're very small, but they're very, I would say, they're very community of, they have community practices, what we do, where people love to come and engage. And these campaigns only help for them to build trust with the brand. So totally, and, with your point that the big idea or the smaller activations, which are connected to this big idea, they help to acquire these customers and build trust for a much longer time. So I think it has its own place, and we need to know what time period and all we need to dedicate.
Yeah, that's an interesting nuance. Nikhil, what's your take on it? You've seen it, in different categories, and now it's education. So, how do you see the power of a big idea, and what do you think is happening?
So I think I agree with everything that the panelists had to say. And the only one thing I'll add is that campaigns are not dead. They just grew up. I think what's dead is the short-termism of it,
Okay.
right? And I won't give you all too much theory. I think maybe another class for it. But I think I'll just give you a very practical, a very fun anecdote. So I did a short stint with a jewelry brand. It was a jewelry startup a long time back, right? And come Akshay Tritiya, this boss of mine, a great marketing person, okay? I mean, somebody I really look up to and I respect. Very sheepishly, he would come up inside my room and say, Nikhil, Akshay Tritiya is here. Oh, we need to do a campaign. I said, what kind of a brief is this? I mean, what's the marketing objective? What's the business objective? What's the strategy around it? He would just smile and he would say, go to, right? I think, and guess what? I used to do a campaign, even with limited monies that we had. We used to go to this very large newspaper, and this very large newspaper would welcome me with open arms, saying that, okay, Nikhil, come. We're very happy. We will give you ad space. I said, hey, I need a jacket ad. He said, okay, we'll give you a jacket ad. And then come Akshay Tritiya, there are 4 ads that you see in the main line. There are 4 ads in the supplement, front, back, 16 opportunities to see, 10 to 12 large players, and we are there somewhere on the inside of the 3rd page, right? Ask yourselves as marketers, would you really run a brand uplift survey after this? The answer is, I don't think so. Anybody would do that, right? So anyways, this is just a fun anecdote I thought I'll share with you. That, to me, that thinking is dead now, right? It's these moments that matter. It is about continuity, right? And it doesn't matter whether you have more budgets, less budgets, you can spend a little more, spend a little less. But I do believe that for brands, it really is about being always on. And the problem gets exacerbated by the fact that today the attention spans are 8.6 seconds, right? It really, you have to have exposures over a longer term.
Sure.
For the brand really to be salient and to be visible. So that's just my take on brand building. Just to give an anecdote, it's more like SIP and it's not like a lump sum investment.
Love it. Love it. I think that sums it up. So we did hear that primarily campaign thinking is not dead. We're not done with it. It's just taken a different form. It's no more very short term. It's no more very sporadic. It's more always on, but it continues to remain rooted in insight and curated enough to be able to command a premium. I think that's where we are, right? So now that said, just because we spoke about the fact that it's curated enough to command a premium, which is why the moment we talk about campaigns and the longevity of campaigns, we heard a couple of ice cream brands before this. We know it's monsoon, so there are a lot of monsoon specific brands, who tend to do like large splashes and stuff like that, umbrellas and rainwear and stuff like that. But if you guys were marketing those categories, right, would you treat it as a seasonal burst just in light of what we spoke? Or would you believe it needs to be always on because that's how it remains memorable, discoverable, and builds long term value? Anyone wants to give this a shot?
I think there are
Sonal.
three people from paints here, or at least who got paint experience.
Fair enough.
we know.
Divyanshu.
All right, I'll take this up actually. See, although you picked up a very tricky category, ice cream,
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to, advertise during the winter season for ice cream, but I'd still do that if I was
Yeah.
doing that in South India.
Yeah.
Some regional promotion will still be, on air. It's extremely important to be, to ensure that you are there. Your mental availability, the memory structure that you create are strong enough that when at the moment of purchase, at the
Yeah.
moment of truth, there is some out of the 5, 6, 4 brands that the consumer is thinking about, your brand is there. So, and seasonal bursts are very important because you can't miss that,
Correct.
unfortunately. But what happens during the silent months is
Yes.
now has now become very important because
Yes.
you are buying those media bursts or seasonal bursts at the
Yeah.
cost of that silence.
Yeah.
So now, in order to make sure that you're not silent anymore, digital has actually democratized a lot. You don't have to, basis your resources, etc. You can decide on doing, activating certain mediums. But in the paint category, we are always on. Be it influencer, digital, you're doing something or the other
Sure.
and ensuring that there is incremental growth happening.
Got it.
And one last point. In this category, it is very important to also see, since we don't get any tertiary based information, how are you tracking your KPIs is again very important. So I track my category searches to ensure that there is an incremental growth.
Sure.
That's all.
So it's like optimizing for the short term whilst building for the long term. Gargi, you were quite keen to add to this, yes?
Yeah, so so life insurance is also known to have a seasonality.
Okay.
Around 60% of our business comes in the GFM months. Okay, everybody wakes up, they realizes there is a tax submission which needs to be done. Most of our renewals happen during GFM because they've bought it last year during GFM, right? So GFM is a very critical period for us.
Sure.
So advertising wise, you will see a lot of action in the life insurance space in during GFM.
Okay.
BFSI is crazy about GFM, right? But it depends on what your brand needs. So it is, so for example, for a brand which is a leader, who is fighting in the market against the top 3 players,
Yeah.
they need a share of voice. Okay, they also have the budgets to fight it out, slug it out, and that extra premium which you have to pay for the media during that time. For the brands which are at the stage where they're in the growth stage, they are venturing out into the brand space, JFM does not make sense. Because you are paying a premium for where you don't even get enough opportunities to see. Like he said, so the same thing, I want a jacket ad, but there are 4 jackets on top of me. So what is the point of it? So for us, it depends on the stage where your brand is and your requirement. You can choose to leave out the seasonality and approach it in a different way, saying, I'll be present when there is no one present. So I can actually take advantage and build recall during that time.
Very interesting. Okay, Sonal, so now I'm going to kind of, pick your brains. Since we've established that it's important to be always on and long-term brand building is supposed to be always on and you have to just find the right ways of doing it, what would your advice be? And what do you see is the right way to judge that this is working?
So, always on is a, invention of this digital age. And it's very, very important. Right?
Sure.
Can't run away from it. It's extremely important. But there's a very critical difference in terms of how one should approach it. And I'll tell you a story.
Okay.
I'm saying that it's an invention of a digital age, but I did it in 2010. Yeah. I'll tell you the story. I was working on Virgin Mobile. People should, some of the, yeah. As far as the age that I see here, I'm sure everybody remembers the brand. So brand is no more. But the advertising that we did in Bates for that, I loved that. Everybody was like, we used to really enjoy working on it because the whole idea was think hatke. And it was a small brand amidst all these, Goliaths. Uh, David is a small one, yeah. Amidst all these Vodafones and big ones. And I was used to closely work with this the brand person Prasad, very nice guy, and we were shooting for a Virgin Mobile commercial in famous in the film city, and he said, "Sonal, IPL is about to be IPL will be there in 1.5 months' time, and we need to be there in IPL." So every brand should be there, and especially our brand because young ones are watching IPL. So I said, but yeah, so do you have the budget? So he said, that's the problem. We don't have the money that Vodafone has or some of these other big ones have. So I said, okay. And I'm smoking a cigarette. And I said, you know what? This is the first year that YouTube will be telecasting IPL live. That was the first year. So I said, let's not go into TV. Young ones will be watching it on, I'm sure, on YouTube. And then I said, Indian Panga League. Let's create an Indian Panga League. And that Indian Panga League was basically banter between fans because the product that the client wanted to advertise was discounted rates on intercity calls. So imagine a Delhi fan, a youngster, calling a Bombay fan the day Mumbai and Delhi match is on and saying, little short commercials where he takes the Mickey of the Bombay guy. And one or the other, comes in trumps in that little banter. So we created these, whatever the number of teams at that time were, 8 or 9. And I went back to office, entire agency, we were a small agency, entire agency, including finance department, CFO, everybody. I said, let's write films, short films, because everybody loves cricket. Let's write films. And people had their own favorites, right? Somebody following Delhi Daredevil, somebody. So people started, we had at the end of a week, 170 scripts. And we decided to shoot 104 of them. We shot 104 commercials. And the way the commercials came out was the day the match was, that day's ad came out. So what was that? That was always on advertising. Now the critical difference is, you can say always on advertising is needed for every brand, but it has to connect very, very strictly with the always on behavior of your consumer. And advertising, communication, as we all know, it's always about the consumer. It's not about the client. It's not about my client. It's not about the person I'm presenting to. It's not about the brand, the product. It's not about the brand. It's about the consumer. Because consumers will take that brand and either love it or hate it or throw it away.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing that story and such a useful example. So, on that note, I want to actually ask you specifically, Harmeet, something. The tendency is that when you're always on, okay, there is distributed might, right? Because many stakeholders get involved, right? Like your agency gets involved, influencers get involved. Like he said, consumers get involved, right? Because they also go ahead and create their own content, right? So with all of this fragmentation, folks like you who are also building strong communities and know that the power of community is everything. How do you ensure brand coherence? How do you still make sure that despite and in spite all of this, there is coherence and the brand voice is not lost?
Okay, so to answer your question, I mean to say for us, I think consumer relatability is the most important, whatever
Okay.
we do. So the brand voice is, of course, we have our own brand voice, and everybody has their own way of communicating. I'm sure every brand has own personality, how you go across your consumers. But I think the engagement with the consumers and how relatable you do in terms of any big idea or small content, that is it very, very important. And this is not only, I would say, just purely marketing through an agency, but it is also UGCs, consumers who make their own content. And of course, our collaboration with with the influencers, with the creators, where we love to work with them, that they can actually bring out the brand essence and understanding with the consumers.
Yeah.
To that extent, that these days when the creators and influencers are all of course they're talking about your brand, whether it is a campaign idea or anything else, we like to engage with the consumers, because in their comment section,
Yeah.
we know there are a lot of questions, and there are a lot of I feel there are a lot of inquisitive of course statements where the consumers need answers. Influencers are there, but I think it is a brand who takes the ownership to
Do you
actually
want to give us
answer
an
and engage with
example,
those
Harmeet?
consumers.
Do you want to give us an example on what you're trying to explain?
For example, we did recently. We did a very important campaign in our on the 50th anniversary of the Body Shop. Global is called Rebellious by Nature, and we had a theme in our stores called Ban the Gyan. So Ban the Gyan actually resonated very well with the consumers, and what we did was, in our stores we had a wall wherein you can come and post your ideas. Ban the Gyan means the unsolicited advice which you do not need. This can be anything. I mean, because it can be as small as, you don't need to tell me what I need to wear, or I think marriages doesn't make sense, probably. So there are a lot of things which are going on in the consumer's mind. And what we are doing is we are sparking conversations so that the consumers can come and engage with us. And of course, let us know as well that what are they thinking. So
Yeah.
Ban the Gyan is something which it was actually, we thought, we were very quite not sure
So
that
the
we should
idea
do it or
helped the
not.
conversation.
But it's a very bold idea and a very bold theme to resonate, with our Rebellious by Nature campaign. And I think this is a theme which can go on and on, because it has many legs to it. So right now we are only in the second leg, and I think for H1, for H2 we have something else, but it will be under the same theme.
Thank you
So,
for sharing. Thank you so much. In fact, Jiten, I'm going to ask you the same question. How do you ensure brand coherence given that you face similar challenges?
Yeah. See, I think there is an ecosystem which is formed, and as a brand, we need to leverage it. So, AI facilitates you to create more content. Influencers creates affinity because they have their own niche base. Then you have the community which builds the trust. But the vision of the brand has to be driven by the brand itself. So each one of them is building up to the conversation. So to the previous conversation also, so we have a end of season sale happening right now, and you'd see an ad of Shopper Stop coming tomorrow. So the point is that throughout the year, I'm talking about premiumization. Now, during the sale, how do I ensure that I talk about premiumization? Because it should not happen that I cannot, because the consumer is not shutting saying that, okay, how come you are behaving in sale and I cannot get an excuse saying sale over, so I am also on sale. So, how to interpret a sale with the lens of premiumization, which is the core of the brand, is what will make the brand stand out. Because otherwise, so you have to be very always on, also brings the responsibility that your tonality has to be always in a consistent manner. It is not the time that Akshay Tritiya you behave differently and Diwali you behave differently, and then you say that, excuse me, there is Diwali happening. It doesn't work that way. So I think all these creators, because they have their own voice, hence when you're also associating with creators, associating with communities, you need to be very clear there is some commonality between. It's not just about reach, that they are the biggest, I am taking the biggest celeb so I will get the highest reach. It doesn't matter, because it's not about the impressions anymore, it is about the engagement we're talking about. So this whole thing has to be seen in a very different light, saying that is it continuing the conversation which I want the brand to have
Yes.
through the AI content, through the influencer. That's what I would say this. Yeah.
Fair enough. Any quick examples anyone wants to share who you think is getting this right, like despite of it being, a campaign managed by different stakeholders outside of their control, they've been able to hold it well together. Any quick examples? you that occur to you, or any of your own examples which you think have done it well? See, we've been speaking about brand coherence. Yeah. So have they been able to hold it well together? Any brands who you think have done a good job of it?
So I think I just given an interesting example now that I work with an
Sure.
education brand. Uh, we do have to work with a lot of parenting community. So for us, what we've seen is it really, really works very well to be for a lot of these stakeholders to help drive brand coherence, to help drive your brand vision and how it should land with the consumers because they understand parenting very well,
Sure.
right? And that's a segment that you want to be associated with. Also, for us, the guardrail is that they have to be authentic. For them, the guardrail is you have to be authentic. A lot of these relationships, unlike in the past where I've worked with consumer goods brands, it's very non-transactional. Actually, a lot of this is not even,
Fair.
it does not involve monetary
Yeah.
compensation, etc. Because it's something that it's based on trust, it's based on belief. They have to believe in you, you have to believe in them. And very interestingly, even in this segment, right, you have to have this entire beyond, I'm going beyond influencers. It's very important to do user generated content is very, very crucial because that's your testimonial. If somebody's had a great experience with you, they're going out there and putting it up on a Quora or a Reddit. And if they've not had a good experience, that's also right up there, right? So for us, of course, that requires us to be always on, but it also requires us to work with really authentic voices in the industry. That kind of works very well for us.
Valuable. That's valuable. Perfect. So I can see time's up. I don't know if we have a couple of minutes. Can someone give us a couple of more minutes?
Quick story on
Yes.
this.
Yes. Yes.
You know, when it comes to UGC, right? If you give people something that they can hold on to, they can make their own, it really works. And I found it out not setting out to do it, right? But something that started as an idea and took a life of its own in a really big way. I was working on McDowell's #1 campaign. And one year I said, I was actually sitting at the airport and going through the campaign that we were presenting the next day. I was going to Bangalore to present.
Okay.
I was working with the Bangalore team, DDB Bangalore. And at the airport, while having a beer, I said, let me think, I'm presenting this campaign, but what is the most potent and most emotionally charged moment in friendship?
Yeah.
And one thing that immediately comes to your mind is, when you're leaving a college or an office, those farewell videos that are made. Yeah. So I started looking at farewell videos on YouTube while sitting, waiting for my flight. Every single video had either two songs on which the whole video was cut, right? Whether it's a school, college, office, which is Yaro Dosti Badi Hi Haseen Hai, KK. And it suddenly struck me, we have friendship as our positioning for McDowell's #1. Why can't McDowell's #1 own an anthem which 5 years down the line, users take and make their own and use it in their farewell videos? That would be the ultimate. And by the same evening, I reached Bangalore, spoke to my team, and sitting in the conference room, I wrote, "Aisi Vaisi Dosti Nahi Hai, #1 Yari Hai," right? And I didn't present the campaign, only that song next day to the client. छाव में धूप में जाने कितने रूप में ये तपी है जली है सोना बन के ये मिली परसों संवरी है ऐसी वैसी दोस्ती ने ये #1 यारी है.
Wow.
So I presented the song, right? And now when I was writing, I was thinking of my school days, growing up in Agra, running behind kites in that hot sun. Yes, तपी है ये जली है सोना बन के मिली. The client stood and said, fantastic, just go ahead. They only saw a scratch recording, heard a scratch recording of this song. We made the film, it became a super hit. Now, if you go on, then over the years, the brand did many versions of that in the sense that #1 Yari Jam happened. on digital, something else happened. So that
Excellent.
one big idea with the soul was being adapted into very many different forms, different by different people. And now, if you go on YouTube, there are cover versions of that song. There are farewell videos with this song.
So let's pretend like Sonal's at
So
the
what I
airport.
no, what I'm trying to say is that, I mean, sorry, the time is up. What I'm trying to say is that in today's day and age, when you have to be always on, when you have to be on so many different plethora of platforms, when you're creators, you are not the only creator. Consumer is the creator, and especially for your brand, it's really important. But give them something that they can that has a soul, and then they'll love it and they'll make it their own.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing such a lovely example. It reminded me of the recently released series Titan Made in India. They did such a wonderful job of, making music the life of their campaign. And, we still remember that music so distinctly. Anyway, that said, imagine Sonal's at the airport. Okay? This is your chance. Don't lose it. Imagine he's at the airport and his creative juices are flowing. And if you had a chance to ask him any one question about your brand, okay, which you can probably go back and apply, what would that be? Take a chance, Narayan. You've had enough thinking time. Go for it.
My question is, have you flown Akasa?
Not as yet, but I used to really respect and love the founder. But I would love to fly.
Lovely. It makes my day. Thank you.
No, I'd love to fly because everything that I've heard, your brand obviously is speaking correctly. Everything I've heard about customer service, about being on time, is very, very positive.
Lovely. And this is exactly what we mean by saying that, everything that we do, for us, the brand is not about the media value put. See, typically as marketers, we have this whole thing saying that the brand has to be seen. For us, it is about the brand has to be felt. So
Yeah,
every
true.
touch point of, when you're interacting with our employees, you should feel the warmth come through. We should stay. So UGC is not something that we run as contests. UGC comes as experiences once they've flown.
Exactly. Great. Excellent. Excellent.
I have one more question actually. So now in the current advertising times now, how do you do that? And how do you put that soul in 20 seconds or less? Asset thinking. I'm coming from asset thinking.
I'm saying asset thinking, whatever the brand is, uh, as long as you worked on the soul of the brand, right? Because that 20-second is not the only thing you will do. You will have maybe a ringtone somewhere. You might have a whole product catalog. You might have, so that soul, you should obviously have that soul that starts getting reflected into everything. Now, once that soul is strong and set, the DNA is set, then making the 20-second becomes
Such a well put statement. And I think I'm sure there's more he can share with you.
And
But-
paints is another category that I love. Working on Asian paints for a very long time. It's so sweet.
All thanks to them actually that the category is D2C.
So thank you, Sonal, for the free advice. I know if we went beyond the stage, we would have to pay for it. But thank you. Thank you for doing this. And thank you, everybody. I had a lovely time chatting. And I think what we do conclude that it is not the end of campaign thinking. It's here to stay. The form has changed and it's no longer as short term.